Could Meghan Markle's claims of lies come back to bite her? Is Prince Harry planning to invite his family to a major upcoming event? But will that stop Prince William stripping his family of their titles? And is King Charles caught in a new tug of war between America and Canada? We have so much to talk about in the show. I don't know how we're going to fit it all in. Welcome to Palace Confidential. I'm Jo Elvin, and on today's panel is the Daily Mail's royal editor Rebecca English and the paper's diary editor Richard Eden. Welcome to you both. Now, our brilliant viewers, you lot are amazing. We've smashed the target of hitting 450,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for that. Now, obviously, you know me, never happy. Now we're after 500,000, and I just know that we can do it. If you're not already, please do press that subscribe button. Some of you might think you subscribe, but when you check, you actually haven't. So do go ahead for me and check. Thank you so much. A reminder that it's free to subscribe, and it means you get notified every time we put out a new video. And I've got to tell you, we've got a lot of exciting new content coming up for you. So up next on this channel is a new episode of Acting Royal, so keep an eye out for that. Let's kick things off in a busy show with the news that we have had confirmation that King Charles will host US President Donald Trump for a state visit to the UK this September. Rebecca, there were reports, however, that King Charles is reported to have been unhappy with how quickly the government has put this into action.
Yeah, so there's a little bit of background to this. So the Times newspaper reported this week that plans for a private visit weren't going to go ahead, but we would go straight to a state visit in September. Now, I've done quite a lot of investigating on this, and that much is true. They also claimed that the King and his team weren't happy with that because they've been trying to put off a full state visit until we'd seen slightly less sabre rattling from President Trump over Canada and the whole idea of making it a 51st state. Now, I've been assured that's not the case, and everyone is singing from the same hymn sheet, and they are busy working toward a proper, full bells and whistles state visit at Windsor Castle in September.
Interesting. Now, Richard, a quick look at the comments section on any episode of Palace Confidential will tell you that the Canadians feel very strongly about their King Charles and what he should be saying to President Trump about their country.
Of course they do. I mean, you know, King Charles is as much the monarch of Canada as he is of here and Australia, you know. So, I mean, I really do feel for the King, because we have a government that seems desperate to suck up to Donald Trump, and that they're using the King for that purpose, sort of forgetting, it seems, that he is also King of Canada. So, you know, the King was very keen to go to Canada for the opening of Parliament. And, you know, he made some comments. He, you know, was really keen to assert that Canada will remain, you know, under his reign. And he was keen to make these points. But then at the same time, he's got the pressure from our government saying, you've got to do this. So they put him in an awkward position. I'm not surprised that he wanted to delay the state visit until things had calmed down. And, you know, I mean, really, look, they could have used things to try and put a bit of pressure on Trump. They could have said, we've got this state visit next year, perhaps, but you do need to pipe down about Canada because it's disrespectful to the Canadians, it's disrespectful to the King. And that may have acted as pressure, but instead they've said, no, you come, you know, we'll arrange a state visit as soon as you want. And it's real undue haste, I would say.
What do you think that we can read into this report, Rebecca, that it was previously thought that Trump and King Charles were going to have a less formal meeting in Scotland this summer, but that's been put on, well, cancelled, basically?
Yeah, so there is a very logical explanation of this, some of which I can explain and some I can't for security reasons. But as we know, Sir Keir Starmer, British Prime Minister, took a letter from King Charles to the White House and very theatrically, some might say slightly gauchily, gave him the letter in front of all the cameras, and President Trump was very touched and said, we'd love you to come for a private visit. And don't underestimate how important that was, because these things are rarely offered. I mean, they're as rare as hen's teeth, particularly at Balmoral, which is obviously the royal family's private estate and their kind of inner sanctum where they escape to for the summer. The trouble is that the only gap in, as I understand it, President Trump's window that he could do this over the summer actually clashes with some really ring-fenced downtime for the King, because as we know, he was diagnosed with cancer last year and has worked, tirelessly throughout. He will still be undergoing, treatment for the foreseeable future, and there's quite a lot going on in the summer in terms of other work events that he can't get out of. So what they said to him is, look, we're going to give you absolutely ring-fence these few days for you, and there was a clash. So I'm assured, and I do believe people to say that we are now completely in alignment. We are working hard towards, making this a really fantastic visit at Windsor. And the last state visit and state banquet at Windsor was in 2015, which was one of the previous French presidents. And although it's smaller than Buckingham Palace, it's really quite special because it's very intimate. It's a 1,000-year-old castle. Wherever you go, there's suits of armours and halberds and pikes, and it's actually very, very special in its own way. So I think they feel that the American president will actually be very impressed by this.
Well, it's worth pointing out, isn't it, Richard, that it's, I think, unprecedented for one president to have two state visits.
Yes, it will be the first time, and that's been mentioned and very much enjoyed by Donald Trump. He's talked about how they're making an exception for him, which is fine. But remember that the letter which was opened at the White House, which was very crass. I really do not think that would have happened under Queen Elizabeth. That letter made clear, the King said, why don't you pop in, when you're in Scotland visiting your golf course. So he wasn't expecting it to be, he made clear, look, we can discuss plans for a state visit then. He made clear it wasn't expected to be a state visit, so he has been pushed into it, the King.
One thing, sorry to interrupt, Joe, I would add to that, and it's worth, I would say this, wouldn't I? Reading a big article, I've done it about it on the Mail today, and I think it's on our website as well. The King has got a few, to use a very bad pun, trump cards up his sleeve. And one of the reasons why the state visit can't be held next year is it's actually the 250th anniversary of America's independence for Britain. And we, in our very kind of self-flagellating way, love to actually celebrate other colonies leaving the UK. So I've been told that, and this is all explained in my article, that we are looking, although the invitation hasn't been issued from the United States yet, we are looking at putting out an outward royal visit to America next year.
Wow.
So we couldn't have an inward state visit and an outward state visit in the same year. So there's a very good reason why it can't be next year. And while we might assume that it might be the King and the Queen that's going to do it, I don't think it will be the King and the Queen, because we've got the Chogham Commonwealth House of Government Conference next year, and one of the options they're looking at is to actually have the Prince and Princess of Wales go to America.
Yeah.
Obviously nothing's been confirmed yet, and it's only one of a number of items up for discussion, but of course that would be royal box office gold if they were to go.
Am I to presume that's like around July 4, that sort of a thing?
I don't know personally when the official commemorations and celebrations are taking place, but we would like to play a big role in that, and I think they're really looking whether they could send our Prince and Princess of Wales out there, which would be fantastic. Anyway, you can read more about it in what I've written.
I'm going to see Hamilton next week, and I always just think of the King George song, "You'll be back, you'll be back." Well, the King hosted not a state visit, but still a rather big occasion at Buckingham Palace last night, and I don't even need to tell you, Rebecca was there, of course. And also there were a couple of British celebrities who recorded this video.
When the song come on, let me see you get gone. Baby mamas, this your song. Been pregnant for way too long. Now tell the DJ, turn it on.
If she a baby mama,
Go ahead.
she gon' do that.
Now, does that remind anyone of anything? A certain Meghan video, perhaps. Rebecca, what is going on here? And for our American viewers who might not know who these celebrities are.
Well, this was a big reception at Buckingham Palace. I mean, we often use the word star-studded. This really was star-studded. You had George and Amal Clooney, and a whole host of people. But amongst there was two kind of reality stars, Jamie Lang and Sophie Haboo, very popular Made in Chelsea series, but they now presenters and other things. And it was for the King's Trust, which obviously Charles founded in '76 with his naval pension, has gone on to do amazing work for disadvantaged young people in this country. But I noticed, and last night I was just about to leave the office, and I noticed this video that had been put up, and they'd filmed very cheekily. They'd filmed this video on the grand.
You're not allowed to, aren't
No,
you?
and actually Jamie Lang says on it, we were told not to do any videos, but basically sod it, we're going to do it anyway. And they'd videoed themselves doing this dance on the grand staircase, which of course was built for Queen Victoria, for, you know, amazing entrance to Buckingham Palace, for balls and things like that. I didn't think they'd quite expect to see some twerking on it. And what really caught my eye was that the official Buckingham Palace account had replied to this.
Which is even more surprising,
and
right?
said, we see you. You
Yeah.
know, we know exactly
I
what
was
you're
surprised by that.
we're doing that. So I rung the palace and said, have you seen this video? And genuinely, is this you lot replying to it? And they were like, no, it won't be. And they came back and went, yeah, it is actually.
Do you think someone got in trouble?
They gave me a very funny response, and they said, look, it's light-hearted, and while we wouldn't encourage guests of Buckingham Palace to do this on a regular basis, and Jamie might want to go and have a look at the Tower of London as an option instead, hashtag lol smiley face.
No, but would whoever's running the social media account have had a stiff word from somebody?
I don't know. I mean, they were a bit surprised, but then they took it in their stride, so hopefully not.
Did you ever think, Richard, you'd hear someone from the Palace Instagram account saying hashtag winky face lols?
My suspicion is the Palace tolerated it because they were clearly having a bit of a pop at Harry and Meghan.
Do you think so? I don't think
You're
so.
so mischievous, Richard.
Oh, come on. They clearly were. I mean, they were saying, look, we're in a palace like you'll never be, and we're doing a little dance.
I think that's reaching. Did they use the same music, though?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, then. Yeah.
They did, yeah. I think they were sort of overtaken by exuberance, and they thought, come on, we'll have a bit of a pop. So, Harry and Meghan might do it in the maternity suite, but we'll actually do it on the staircase at the palace.
And there were a few comments underneath it going, well, Harry and Meghan, there's no way they could do it at Buckingham Palace, but you two achieved it. So there was a little bit of schadenfreude.
And Sophie wasn't really twerking, was she, in this case? It was a
bit of a jiggle.
Elegant shuffle.
Very hard to do
Actually,
when one is
quite,
pregnant.
yeah.
It's hard to do anyway, not least of all when you're pregnant.
She certainly wasn't kind of squatting down on the floor you've seen in the other video.
No, she maintained her dignity.
Squatting's a nice word, isn't it? Anyway. Now, let's move on to nice things. Rebecca, Prince William, it was his birthday this week. How did he mark the occasion?
With an overload of cuteness, I think it's probably a fair description. It was his birthday, and as has become familiar, we got a lovely photograph from Kensington Palace taken by Catherine herself, and it showed William with all of their spaniel and her new litter of puppies that we spoke about on the programme the other day. As you can imagine, it was very well liked by the general public. A royal and dogs, what more could you want?
Absolutely. I keep saying I hope they keep all those puppies.
Well, I've been told that I think they are going to keep one. So we've got another royal pet to add to the
And where will the others go?
Well, you'd be pretty lucky to get one of those puppies.
That's what I mean.
You?
Can you buy a royal pup?
Great.
Yeah.
I want one. Give me one. Well, we have a treat for William fans coming up later in the show, so do make sure you stick around for that. Now, Richard, there was a profile of him this week that hinted at changes he might make when he becomes king.
Yes, I mean, we sort of heard a lot of this really, because the profiles of Prince William are always sort of suggesting he's going to change things a lot, but they never really specify how.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a real difficult balancing act, because they want to sort of say, yeah, he's going to be fresh, he's going to be different, but they don't want to offend the king. They don't want to say, oh, you're doing these things really badly, I'll do them differently. So there's lots of sort of euphemisms about sort of looking under the bonnet and seeing how things work. But it was a bit, I'll say this politely, kind of lacking in detail, really. But
And it's interesting because if you can cast your mind back, there was a time when all of the profiles about the Prince of Wales, Charles, sort of said, what will he be like when he be king? He's going to do this and that differently. It's a
good point, Joe.
Clues to change,
Yeah, I mean, look, with Prince William, we've seen already that he does do things differently. I mean, the biggest example, I would say, is not wanting to have an investiture ceremony at all when he became Prince of Wales. Because we remember what a huge event it was with his father. William didn't have one at all. So that made people think, whoa, will he actually have a coronation service?
But surely.
No, he will, but...
but pared down, I suspect, from his father, just as his father was from his mother.
Exactly. But he'll come under a lot of pressure from people not to change things too much. Certainly that's always my view, is we want to maintain the great traditions that make the royal family different. And there were things in this profile that cheered me as well. They said that Prince William recognises how valuable his uncle Prince Edward and his aunt Sophie are and their contributions. And there are also hints that he might be giving more of a role to his cousins, such as Princesses Beatrice and Eugenie. So hopefully he does.
And we also heard news this week that William might be heading to South America later this year.
Yeah, well, it's more confirmation of what we already knew, because he's taking his Earthshot Prize, which is obviously his massive decade-long passion project, his environmental awards, to Brazil, and they were confirming exactly where he'll go in Brazil and the venues. But I was with him actually earlier on this week when it was all confirmed. He's taking part, doing a number of engagements this week for London Climate Action Week, and you can just see the way he talks about it, just how much this means to him and what a huge legacy project it is. And actually, you know, the kind of the high profile nature of the people that are now getting involved shows you, I think, that it is having traction. So good on him.
Excellent. Now, Richard, you have written an article this week saying that William has longer term plans for the Sussex titles.
Yes, this is it's a very interesting, kind of intriguing subject. And essentially the story is that Prince William will, when he's king, strip Harry and Meghan and their children of these HRH titles. Now, where this prediction comes from is a journalist called Tom Sykes, very well connected. But it all goes back to that extraordinary story that appeared in the Guardian newspaper, which was in response to my story about Prince Harry talking to his uncle Earl Spencer about dropping the royal family's name. Anyway, so then the Guardian story appeared that Harry and Meghan had applied for British passports for their children, in which they insisted that HRH titles were printed in their passports. And the reason given to the Guardian was that that's because they think their children could have a formal royal role in the future and be working royals. Well, I've reported before, this caused astonishment in royal circles. You know, why on earth would they want this for their children when it's everything that they've rejected?
Well, and you know, Prince Harry has always pointed out how terrible it was for him.
Exactly.
Generational cycle.
Yeah.
And what Tom Sykes has reported, this won't happen because Prince William will pare back the titles. And I have heard similar things, that what it may be part of is a wider sort of reorganisation. We've always known that Prince William wanted a sort of slimmed down monarchy. So he may restrict the use of HRH titles to working royals. And then that would be part of a sort of broader thing, and it wouldn't look too kind of petty or, you know, aimed specifically at Harry and Meghan. So however much they value those titles now and for their children, they may not have them, you know, for that many years to come.
Watch this space. Well, we'll have more on Harry, Meghan and Catherine in just a moment. Before then, let's take a quick look at some of your comments and questions. Now, last week we put out a very special show coming from an extremely warm Royal Ascot, and we loved what you had to say about it. Thanks so much. Like this one from Wendy Frith, who said, "The loveliest Daily Mail royals ever. Just missed Richard. Going to watch it over again. It made my day here in New Zealand. Thank you to you all." Yeah, Richard, a lot of people were saying that they missed you.
Okay.
We missed you.
Well, if we do it next year, I'll definitely go. I'll be in my top hat and tails.
Yeah, I think a lot of people definitely want to see that. Now, to one from Russia is a riddle, who said, "Polo is the sport of kings, but I agree that Camilla is the queen of hats." Yes, that's what I think. Hers always make me thrilled to see them. What a treat to see them in person. So if you did miss that show, go back and check it out after this. We had this interesting question from Dell, who had this question about the royal procession that takes place every day at Royal Ascot. How do the people in carriages get home? Do the carriages and horses go back home right after dropping people? Now, that's an interesting question. I haven't thought of that. What's the answer, Rebecca?
I suppose it's one of those you take for granted,
Yes.
but actually when you start to question it. And I should point out, as we did on the programme last week, it's the 200th anniversary this year of the royal procession, which is why there was such a big deal out of it. And obviously the reason why they come down from Windsor Castle in the Landau is because they will have lunch with the king when he's their guest. So it's a very special day. But unfortunately that magic ends once they leave the royal box at the end of the day, and I suspect it's an Uber home or whatever.
Limping back down to that train station where you see everybody in bare feet.
Exactly. And In fact, there's very enterprising hawkers there who kind of sell flip-flops and stuff for people who've just had enough of their heels on the way back down to the
That's
station.
a bit much, isn't it? You arrive in a carriage from Windsor Castle and you have to put your flip-flops on and call a taxi.
It's the Cinderella, the pumpkin comes back at midnight, isn't
Exactly,
it?
so.
It definitely is. Well, meanwhile, Carolyn asked, I thought Edward's and Sophie's daughter, Lady Louise, was also into horses. Was she not there at this event? What can you tell us, Richard?
Yes, Lady Louise Windsor loves horses. She's very much into carriage driving, which she kind of learned from her grandpa, Prince Philip. But I don't think, from what I've seen, she's ever been to Royal Ascot, actually. And I think the reason really is education, that Royal Ascot happens while schools are, still, it's part of their term. She's at St Andrews University. I think she's in her third year, perhaps, second or third year.
It's a 4-year course there, isn't it?
Yeah, 4-year course in Scotland, and I don't think they had finished by that point. So I'm sure we can look forward to seeing her in the future, but as far as I know, she hasn't been yet.
She loves horses, but she also takes her studies seriously.
And it's probably exam time about now for them, so... Yeah.
Bummer.
Exactly.
Anyway, well, good luck, Lady Louise. Well, we had a few people ask the same question, like this from Liz in South Africa. Hi, Liz. Rebecca and Joe, here is a really deep question. How do your hats stay on? Share the secret. It says here in brackets on my auto cue, Joe explains the science. Well, good luck there, because mine kept slipping all day. And I mean, mine had a little elastic band that felt very secure, but I think my hair got sweaty.
It just makes me laugh, because if she could only see you when the cameras weren't rolling, you were like, Rebecca! I was kind of constantly having to push your hat back on over your head. So actually, I don't think you did.
Well, I want to say thank you and also sorry to the milliner who kindly lent me my hat, Victoria Grant, because I don't think I did it justice, but I tried.
It was an amazing hat, but it was challenging situations. You'll have to see what you're like with your top hat.
I remember getting in trouble at a previous Royal Ascot because I dared to take my top hat off. And someone actually came over and said, you've got to keep your hat on.
That's basically
Isn't there a
nudity
song about
at
that? As long as you weren't doing what the rest of the song
I was fully
says.
dressed at the time.
I really did feel for the chaps. That was a lot of layers for a 35-degree day.
Yeah, it was. And actually mine just had a little hairband on it, so mine was fine.
No, the top hats are warm,
Yeah.
I hope that answers some of your questions. We had a lot of questions and more than we can answer here. So we're going to put together another Palace Confidential Q&A so we can answer more of your questions. But if you have been wondering about any aspect of royal life, let us know in the comments below and we'd love to hear from you. And just finally, I wanted to say you wanted to give a shout out to some Antigua viewers.
Yeah, well, it's so great hearing each week, or when I go out on jobs, from viewers from different countries. And it's amazing the reach the programme's got. And I was covering an event at St James's Palace this week where the King was holding a big reception for the 25th anniversary of his Royal Drawing School. And I met two lovely people from Antigua who said, the wife said, we watch the programme every week, so I just want to say
it's wild,
hello.
Isn't it?
And it was just really lovely. And actually I'm really excited because Chogham is going to be held in Antigua next year, so hopefully I'll get to go and to see their lovely islands.
You will get invited for tea. That's
Hopefully.
exciting. Please do let us know, are there any other Palace Confidential viewers in the West Indies? We would love to hear from you in the comments. We love hearing about our international reach.
It's genuinely touching,
It's
actually. It's
incredible.
lovely.
Right, let's get back to the royal events of the week now. Richard, we had another video from Meghan, didn't we?
This is becoming a bit of a thing. So
She's on Instagram. She's got to port those products.
Yeah, true.
Yeah.
But she sort of, puts up a new range of jam or whatever, and then it sells out because it's not very big. And then she records a video saying...
So cynical.
Isn't he just?
Then she records a video saying, I'm so grateful, thank you. And this one again was featuring her daughter Lilibet. I don't want to be rude, but we're becoming so familiar with Lilibet's back. You never see her face. I just think either sort of feature the children and have their faces, or just leave them out of your product launches. It just really grates with me.
Well, this did come after her team said that they've sold out of her products, but you obviously are a bit dubious about that.
I want the figures. I demand to see the figures. How many have they sold? It's ridiculous, isn't it? They sell out. What if you got 5? You can say you've sold out.
Well, I don't know. Do you?
Well, it's interesting because they gave some exclusive quotes about this to a magazine, I can't remember which one, and saying we actually had 3 times more products or something like that than we did on the first range. But then they still don't say but how many units they were actually trying to push in the first place. And I think that, as you rightly say, is the key figure. Is is it that demand is outstripping production, or is it that it's just a very limited teaser all the time? No one knows.
And they've given very limited information about sort of where these products come from. You know, where's the fruit coming from for these jams?
It's not coming from Meghan's orchard, her
No,
orchard Riviera.
The original ones were.
Right.
The original jams that she sent to friends were actually from.
Gosh, I'm naive. I
made from
genuinely
fruit.
believe that that's where it was all coming from.
Well, and did you see the story on Mail Online this week about the... so they very cleverly spotted on her website, and how you would do this escapes me, I'm a complete Luddite, but there's metadata which shows where her tea's from. And so her tea is actually from a factory that's something like 500 miles away from California that produces a similar hibiscus tea but in a different shaped tea bag for 3 times less than Meghan is selling it for. And they put it to them and said, well, look, is this the same tea just in a different shaped bag? And apparently they refused to get back to them. So read into that what you will, people.
Well, it's all about marketing, and credit to Meghan, she's certainly putting a lot of effort into that marketing.
Wow, Richard, was that a compliment?
A barbed one.
Now, Rebecca, we were at Royal Ascot last week, so we didn't discuss Meghan's controversial appearance on the podcast where she talked about lies. Tell us about that.
Yeah, I wrote a big piece on this because I thought it was very, very interesting. So it was on the, she appeared on in the run-up to the As Ever launch on the Aspire podcast to basically plug this forthcoming extended range of hers. And the host asked a very clever question, I thought, which was...
The host being Emma Grede.
Emma Grede, yeah. If you wanted to change anything about your kind of, you know, your public profile, is there anything that you would change or do differently? Now, you'd expect someone to maybe slightly look inwardly at themselves. Meghan batted this straight back, and it wasn't an inward look. She said, I would ask people to tell the truth about me, and then went on to talk about a mysterious lie that had been told about her 8 years ago, but not saying what that lie was and how, you know, it surely couldn't hang around for a lifetime. And Buckingham Palace did not want to comment on this, obviously. They really don't want to get into public spats with Harry and Meghan anymore, unless they involve twerking videos at Buckingham Palace.
Oh, yeah. Pick a lane, guys. Yeah.
But I spoke to a lot of well-placed people in royal circles.
Yes, you
and they
wrote a piece about it for the Mail, which was
they
fascinating.
did, and I hate to use the word eyebrow raising because it's an often overused word in the way that olive branch is in my business. But they were like, I think there's a lot of people actually around Harry and Meghan who would very much like to tell the truth about their experiences, working for them, alongside them, and with them. And maybe you should, you know, be careful what you wish for, Meghan.
May I ask, why don't they tell the truth? Because I'm thinking of maybe it's the wrong leap, but I'm thinking about this investigation into bullying of which we never knew the outcome and things like that could.
Absolutely. I mean, look, there is the kind of royal equivalent of NDAs, but also, and I made the point in the piece in saying this, that people who work for the royal household have a lot of dignity and a lot of honour, and they believe that you go into that kind of service for crown and country, and you don't start tattling outside of it about members of the royal family. And I know I will be criticised for saying that in some ways because, you know, a lot has come out of Harry and Meghan, but I think those at the heart of it really haven't told their story fully. Because,
I mean, look, I'll just say, you know, we had lots of people made serious claims against Meghan, and we only knew about it because there were some leaked emails. And then we had the Buckingham Palace investigation into these bullying claims, and that's never been made public. So I would say, you know, make it public.
And also, is there anybody who can maybe... I'll get in trouble for saying this, but is there anyone who could put pressure on Meghan? We've got, you know, somebody was racist about my baby, but we don't know who. Now we've got somebody told this mysterious lie, but I'm not going to say what or who. She can't just keep throwing those little speculative pieces out.
Exactly, Jo. And this is what someone made the point to me. You know, on a very serious basis, they said, look, you know, why is she going back? Why couldn't she just answer the question in a positive way? Why is there constant needling and digging and, you know, casting conjecture on her time as a member of the royal family? You know, it's a bit of a running sore. Why does she need to keep on kind of, you know, picking at it? And also, if you are going to keep on doing that, if you're going to keep on digging, you might not like what comes up.
Well, yeah, it might come back to bite us.
Yeah,
seriously.
exactly.
Remember
So-
what Meghan's response to those bullying claims was at the time was, these are lies. This is completely untrue. So she was accusing these people of lying. And, we want to see, give them a chance to say. I mean, they often haven't had that chance because they've signed agreements or whatever.
And they're not getting invited onto a podcast
Yeah, so
every
there's
week.
a lot of mud has been thrown, and it does seem unfair on those staff.
I also
members.
know for a fact that I only know a little about the bullying claims process, but I know for a fact that some people I think should have been interviewed weren't. So I'm not sure. I've never been
But why?
particularly convinced. I don't know why, and I don't think they know why. So I'm not entirely convinced it really went to the nth degree in getting to the bottom of them anyway. So.
Wow. That's an interesting one. Now, sticking with the Sussexes just for a second, Richard, there was a report in the Mail on Sunday that suggested that Prince Harry might be making overtures towards the rest of the royals.
Yes, this is really interesting. I mean, it's looking ahead quite a long way. It's the Invictus Games are coming back to Britain in 2027, so not for 2 years. But what Charlotte Griffiths was reporting was that members of the royal family will be invited to those events. And quite rightly that they should be, because the Invictus Games wasn't just established by Prince Harry. Remember when it was launched, we had the King there and Queen Camilla and Prince William was very much part of it because it was his royal foundation with Catherine that launched the Invictus Games. Obviously since then Harry has left, but it has to be said, I mean, it will put the royals in a difficult position at that time, because they don't have that relationship with Prince Harry now. It's a very worthy cause. And they wouldn't want to look, petty or churlish by not being involved. So it is an awkward one, but as we say, it's not for 2 years, so a lot of things might have changed by then.
I did ask the palace about it this week, and it's not something they're being drawn on, but I do think this is going to be an awkward one for them over the next few months, because obviously the King is head of the armed forces and he wants to be supportive of our serving military and those that have left the military for whatever reason. It's going to be a tricky one for them, I think. And I was there actually when he launched it in 2014. I remember it. The King coming. I think Queen Camilla came. William was there. It was. They were genuinely very proud of him and what he'd achieved there. I could see their faces right there, smiling when he gave his speech. So there was a lot of goodwill towards it. It's going to be a tricky one for them,
to give you an example, when there was a service at Westminster Abbey to commemorate the founding of the Invictus Games quite recently, I don't think any members of the royal family attended, did they?
Certainly no senior members of the royal family.
No, we had members of the Spencer family, such as Earl Spencer did, but no senior members of the royal family. So, it's a tricky question.
Yeah, well, we shall see. Now, I just want to talk about Catherine now, Rebecca. The Princess of Wales's last-minute withdrawal from Ascot came as a shock to you and all the others in the royal box last week. Now, you've been looking into the story, and God, you're busy. You've read a really interesting piece about it.
Well, look, there has been kind of a lot of criticism about this, people saying you're criticising her for not going. We're not criticising for her, but what I do know is that she was expected to go, and then suddenly she wasn't.
Yeah.
And we were told only after that carriage list came out that she wasn't going to be there. And people forget that Kensington Palace did say she's disappointed not to be coming. So, there was an expectation she would be there on the day, and she wasn't. And I thought it was just a timely reminder to have a look at how things have been for her, because of course people forget this time last year she was undergoing chemotherapy after cancer was diagnosed following very serious abdominal surgery. That was literally only a year ago. She was in the throes of her chemotherapy and was only told in January she'd been in remission. And I wrote a piece towards the end of last year saying, look, while we will see her slowly returning to royal duties, it's going to be slightly piecemeal this year, feeling as they go. And again, at the time, I got some criticism, people saying, look, she's straight out of the starting blocks at the beginning of the year. But lo and behold, actually, that is what we have seen, is a very slow and measured return. And someone said to me, look, some weeks you'll see her a lot, and some weeks she won't, and that's absolutely fine. You know, I've said that we wouldn't see her this week, but we'll almost certainly see her at Wimbledon. She will be taking part in a very significant way in the state visit of the French President, Emmanuel Macron, in early July. And then she will take the summer off, and then we'll see where the autumn brings us.
Yeah.
And my understanding is King Charles is very supportive of this, not only because he's just a decent man and, you know, has personal experience of what she's been going through, but also he knows that, you know, she plays a very significant role in the royal family, both now and obviously will do as future queen, and they want to make sure they get this right. So they're very supportive of her.
And if you want to read that, we will put a link for that in the description below. Now, Richard, you know, I mean, nobody wants Catherine to hurry back to full-time duties when she's not up to it. But it is always true, isn't it, that you really notice the missing star power whenever she's not at an event.
Yeah, I mean, Catherine was much missed. You know, she's been fantastic at Royal Ascot in the past, and you know, it's always great to see what she's wearing. She really lifts the event, so everyone was disappointed. But I think we all understand the most important thing is for her to be well, to stay well. I have to say though, with the King, I mean, wow, he went 5 consecutive days. You know, the hottest week of our year, boiling with all his suits, and I don't think he's a great racing fan, to be honest.
Well, I'm just about to say though, to me, he looked like he was really having a ball.
I think he was enjoying. I think he knows that his wife Queen Camilla enjoys it, and I think it was his sense of duty. It was something that was very important to his mother, and he knows the importance of the royal family to Ascot. It was really heartening to see him, you know, every day. I just thought, wow, it's very impressive.
Indeed. Now, Rebecca, a little issue of royal protocol now, because you've noticed a number of high-profile people wearing more unusual footwear than usual when meeting the King recently.
Yes, I mentioned earlier on I was covering at St James's Palace the Royal Drawing School reception earlier on this week, and I noticed not one but 2 famous faces wearing none other than Crocs to meet the King.
Stop it.
It was obviously a big arts event, so we had Tracy Emin, Dame Tracy Emin.
Richard Eden is going to need some smelling salts stat.
Well,
God,
come on,
Richard, have you not got a pair of Crocs sneakily hidden away at home? I can't see it personally, but...
No, I've never worn Crocs, I must say.
Richard wears a tie to bed.
But come on, this is Tracy Emin. This is the artist best known for revolting unmade bed, you know, with soiled stuff on it. So it doesn't surprise me. She shouldn't be invited to the palace at all.
Richard, do you know what? I had such a nice chat with her. She is such a big fan of the King, and she said we're so lucky to have a head of state who is so passionate about drawing the arts. They're besties, those 2. But also Grayson Perry, who's a kind of very well-known cross-dressing potter, you know, award. Richard's like she's going off on a tangent. I'm entirely not.
No, we love Grayson Perry. We should say Sir Grayson Perry.
Yes, indeed.
We often write about him in the diary. So he wears really colourful women's outfits. He just loves wearing women's clothes. But why is he wearing Crocs? Shouldn't he be wearing fancy high heels or something?
Well, he often does, but his Crocs, I noticed, were like all hand-painted, kind of in rainbows in different colours. Someone pointed out to me as well that there's a picture of me that we are literally wearing the same. I'm wearing the same colour dress as Grayson Perry.
Oh, he wore it
so
best.
I know. It was quite funny.
Listen, if I was in charge, Crocs would be absolutely illegal.
And actually, it's not the first time.
David Hockney wore them as well.
David Hockney wore yellow Crocs, I seem to remember.
This is clearly an artistic thing, isn't it?
I'm not happy. Well, anyway, hear that. Because it's time to celebrate some unsung heroes of royal life. Rebecca, who are you going to nominate this week?
Well, this is a bit of a departure, so I'm going to nominate the master of the household, Tony Johnston-Burt.
Oh, now that's a proper unsung hero.
I should say,
tell us all about
Vice Admiral Sir Tony Johnston-Burt, who's a brilliant character, and basically the master of the household is one of these wonderful titles like Keeper of the Privy Purse that date back to very ancient times but have a very important practical role, and he's basically the glue that holds everything together at Buckingham Palace in terms of official entertaining, receptions. Nothing goes on, you know, without him having overseen it. His attention to detail is legendary. And obviously he's now got not just one, but 2 state visits to prepare for within 2 months of each other. The French state
Thoughts
visit.
and prayers, Tony.
French state visit in early July, and now the big American state visit in September. And that is no small feat, I'll tell you. And obviously working for Vice Admiral Sir Tony Johnson-Burt is a whole army of people at Buckingham Palace who are now unfortunately going to have to curtail some of their summer holidays to make sure that state visit in September is pulled off. So they're all heroes in my eyes.
It's a hard life, that royal life.
You've put me right off. I was thinking how wonderful it would be to be a master of the household, but now you've put me off. I'm not sure I'm a master of my own
household.
No,
yeah, having met your lovely wife, I don't think you are.
No, absolutely not. Well, as mentioned a little earlier, we wanted to mark Prince William's 43rd birthday this week, so we decided to do it with some of our very favourite pictures. Here are 43 of them. Wishing the Prince of Wales a very happy birthday from all of us here at Palace Confidential, and his birthday twin, my baby sister Brooke, born virtually to the minute of each other. Up next we have representations of William and Catherine and more Richard and Rebecca in another instalment of our show, Acting Royal. So click here for that. Now it's just time to say thanks to them for being on my panel and to you for watching. We will see you next week. Bye.